Right now, there's a small muscle hidden deep inside your lower leg that most people have never even heard of. It lies behind the shin bone, concealed beneath the larger calf muscle that you can actually see. You won't notice it in the mirror, and chances are you've never paid attention to it. Yet this overlooked muscle has an extraordinary ability. When activated, it can pull glucose directly out of your bloodstream without placing extra demands on your pancreas. Researchers at the University of Houston demonstrated just how powerful it can be. Their peer-reviewed study found that people who activated this muscle while simply sitting in a chair reduced their after-meal blood sugar spike by nearly 50%. No workout, no special diet, no medication. Just one small movement performed while sitting at a desk. Once you understand why this happens, you'll never look at that familiar afternoon energy crash the same way again. Before we dive in, if you enjoy health information explained clearly instead of oversimplified, make sure to like this video and subscribe. The goal is to reach 300,000 subscribers, and every like genuinely helps this channel reach more people. You'll also find practical checklists and additional health tips on my Telegram channel. The QR code is on your screen now, so take a moment to scan it. Now, let's look at what's really happening inside your body. To understand why you feel exhausted after eating, you first need to understand glucose. Glucose is the simplest form of sugar, and more importantly, it is your body's primary fuel source. Every organ depends on it. Your muscles burn it for movement. Your liver stores it for later use. And your brain relies on it almost constantly. In fact, if your brain is deprived of glucose for even a few minutes, your ability to think clearly quickly begins to decline. So glucose itself is not the problem. Your body needs it to survive. The real issue begins when a large amount enters your bloodstream in a very short period of time, leaving your body struggling to manage the sudden surge. Whenever you eat carbohydrates, bread, rice, pasta, potatoes, sugary foods, and even certain fruits, your digestive system breaks them down into glucose. That glucose then enters your bloodstream exactly as nature intended. Under normal circumstances, this process is completely healthy. The challenge comes when glucose floods the bloodstream too quickly. Think of a garden hose. With the tap open gently, water flows smoothly and the hose stays relaxed. But if someone suddenly turns the tap fully on, pressure builds, the hose swells, and its walls are placed under strain. A rapid blood sugar spike creates a similar kind of stress inside your blood vessels. Your body immediately recognizes this increase and sends a signal to the pancreas, the small organ located behind your stomach. The instruction is straightforward: release insulin and do it quickly. Insulin is a hormone that works like a delivery system. Its job is to remove glucose from the bloodstream and transport it into your cells, where it can either be burned for energy or stored for later. Some glucose is delivered to your muscles, while a significant portion is stored in the liver as glycogen, the body's reserve fuel supply. But here's where things become important. If your muscles are already full of energy, your liver has reached its storage limit, and you're sitting on the couch after dinner instead of being physically active, your body still has excess glucose to deal with. Since it cannot leave that sugar circulating in your blood, it converts the remainder into body fat. Once stored there, accessing that energy becomes much more difficult. At the same time, insulin may do its job a little too effectively. It removes so much glucose from your bloodstream that your blood sugar can briefly fall below the level it was at before the meal. That's the moment many people experience the familiar crash. This sudden drop explains the symptoms millions of people notice every day. As blood sugar falls rapidly, your brain, which depends heavily on glucose, detects the shortage and immediately sounds the alarm. To your brain, it feels like energy is disappearing, and it wants the problem fixed as quickly as possible. That's when the overwhelming wave of tiredness begins to hit. Your mind starts to feel cloudy, thinking becomes slower, concentration fades, and even simple tasks seem harder than they should. Your eyelids grow heavy, and before long a very familiar craving appears, the urge for something sweet immediately. A biscuit, a candy bar, a donut, or that bowl of chocolate sitting in the office break room. This isn't a failure of self-control, and it certainly isn't a character flaw. It's biology doing exactly what it was designed to do. Your brain is protecting itself. When it senses that its fuel supply is falling too quickly, it sends powerful signals demanding more glucose as fast as possible. The sequence is simple. Blood sugar rises rapidly, then drops just as fast. In response, your brain shifts into energy-saving mode. It temporarily slows down anything that isn't essential, so it can preserve enough fuel for the functions that matter most. That's the real reason so many people feel like they've crashed into a wall around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. There's a patient story that illustrates this perfectly. Linda, a 44-year-old accountant, was bright, organized, and mentally sharp every morning. But almost every afternoon after lunch, everything changed. Her concentration disappeared, her thinking became sluggish, and staring at spreadsheets suddenly felt exhausting. Without fail, around 3 o'clock, she'd walk to the vending machine and buy a chocolate bar. For years, Linda blamed herself. She believed she simply loved sweets too much or lacked the discipline to resist them. But neither explanation was true. She was trapped in the same biochemical cycle every single afternoon. The chocolate briefly pushed her blood sugar back up, only for it to crash again a short time later. By the time she got home around 6 in the evening, she felt completely drained, even though her workload had been perfectly ordinary. Her exhaustion wasn't caused by her job, it was caused by a daily blood sugar roller coaster that no one had ever taken the time to explain. The problem is that every one of those sugar spikes comes with a cost. Each surge forces the pancreas to release another burst of insulin. Once, twice, hundreds of times, eventually thousands of times over the years. Little by little, that constant demand begins to add up. If this pattern sounds familiar, take a moment to like the video. It helps other people dealing with the exact same symptoms discover this information. So what happens if this cycle continues for years? Your pancreas isn't built to work at maximum capacity forever. Like any organ, it has limits, and repeated insulin surges gradually increase its workload. At first, it compensates without difficulty. Over time, however, the system becomes less efficient. Eventually, your body's cells begin responding less effectively to insulin. This condition is known as insulin resistance. In simple terms, insulin is still present, but the cells stop responding the way they should. Imagine having the correct key for a locked door, but the lock has become rusty and refuses to turn. The key hasn't changed. The problem is that the lock no longer works properly. To overcome that resistance, the pancreas has no choice but to produce even more insulin. Year after year it works harder, yet achieves less, placing increasing strain on the system. The frustrating part is that routine blood tests can remain completely normal for a surprisingly long time. There may be no diagnosis, no warning label, and no obvious red flag. Yet the symptoms are very real. The afternoon fatigue continues. Belly fat slowly increases. Sugar cravings become harder to ignore. You know something feels different, but every test suggests everything is fine. Ironically, this stage, before a formal diagnosis is ever made, is often the easiest time to reverse the process. Here's another situation that primary care physicians see regularly. Mike, a 52-year-old man, scheduled an appointment because of persistent back pain. At first glance, the visit had nothing to do with blood sugar. But during the consultation, he casually mentioned that he'd been constantly hungry for the past 3 years. Even after eating a full meal, he'd feel hungry again within an hour. His doctor ordered routine blood work. His fasting glucose wasn't high enough to qualify as diabetes, and it wasn't even officially in the pre-diabetes range. It simply sat right at the upper edge of normal. To an experienced clinician, though, that number meant much more than it appeared to. It suggested the pancreas was already working close to its limit, with less reserve left than it should have. The only reason no one had raised concerns earlier was because, on paper, every result still technically fell within the normal range. If this cycle continues unchecked, insulin resistance doesn't simply stay where it is. Over time, it progresses into prediabetes, and prediabetes can eventually develop into type 2 diabetes. Once that happens, the complications begin to appear. Blood vessels become damaged, vision may start to decline, kidney function can suffer, and even small cuts or wounds, especially on the feet, may take much longer to heal. This isn't meant to frighten you. It's the reality healthcare providers across the United States encounter every single week. The encouraging news is that if your blood sugar is still within the normal range, this process can often be slowed, stopped, or even reversed before permanent damage occurs. And one of the most effective tools isn't found in a prescription bottle. It's already built into your body. Your muscles. Inside every muscle cell are tiny energy-producing structures known as mitochondria. You don't need to memorize the name. What's important is their function. Think of them as miniature power plants. They pull glucose from your bloodstream, convert it into energy, and provide the fuel your body needs for movement while also generating heat. When you're sitting completely still, these power plants operate at a very low level. Their energy demands are minimal, so they burn very little glucose. But the instant a muscle begins to contract, everything changes. Those mitochondria rapidly increase their activity, consuming glucose at a much faster rate. Here's the fascinating part. Under normal circumstances, glucose depends on insulin to gain access to a muscle cell. Insulin acts like a key that unlocks the door. Without that key, glucose has difficulty getting inside. But an actively contracting muscle has another option. It opens a completely different doorway. As soon as the muscle starts working, it activates a separate biological pathway that allows glucose to enter directly without relying on insulin. Sugar moves straight out of the bloodstream and into the muscle cell, while the pancreas hardly has to participate at all. Blood sugar remains more stable, insulin levels stay lower, and the familiar glucose roller coaster never has the chance to begin. This explains why the first 90 minutes after eating are one of the most important periods of the day for your metabolism. That's when blood glucose is naturally rising. If your muscles are active during this window, they can capture much of that glucose immediately, using it for energy before it's stored as body fat, and before your pancreas is forced to release another large wave of insulin. So which muscle is especially good at this? This brings us back to the hidden muscle deep inside your calf. But first, one important point. The connection between muscle activity and blood sugar control is no longer controversial. It's well established by scientific research. However, the benefits depend on consistency, not occasional effort. A single walk after one meal helps manage the glucose from that meal. Repeating that habit day after day gradually changes the way your entire body handles sugar. Your muscles become more efficient at using glucose. Your cells grow more responsive to insulin, and your metabolism slowly shifts in a healthier direction. The key word isn't intensity, it's consistency. Now let's look at the muscle itself. The back of your lower leg contains two major muscles, layered one above the other. The large muscle you can easily see and feel forming the shape of your calf is the gastrocnemius. It's the muscle that contracts when you rise onto your tiptoes. Hidden directly beneath it is another muscle called the soleus. Most people have never heard its name, You can't easily see it, and you rarely notice it working. Yet pound for pound, it may be one of the most effective muscles in the entire body at removing glucose from the bloodstream. A few years ago, scientists at the University of Houston carried out an experiment that attracted widespread attention throughout the medical research community. Their findings, published in a peer-reviewed journal in 2022, asked participants to perform an incredibly simple movement after eating. While remaining seated, they repeatedly lifted and lowered their heels, keeping their toes firmly planted on the floor. Participants could continue working at a computer, watching television, reading, or talking on the phone. Their daily routine barely changed. The only movement involved the back of the foot. The results surprised even the research team. After-meal blood sugar spikes were reduced by approximately 52%. Even more impressive, insulin release dropped by nearly 60%. That second figure is especially remarkable because it shows the pancreas had far less work to do. The soleus muscle was removing glucose from the bloodstream so efficiently that the body no longer needed such a large insulin response to keep blood sugar under control. You can even try this while watching the video. Place both feet flat on the floor. Keep your toes firmly planted. Now slowly raise your heels while keeping your toes firmly on the floor. Then lower them back down. Up and down at a comfortable rhythm. There's no need to rush or force the movement. You can do this while sitting at your office desk, relaxing on the sofa, or even waiting in a cafe. Most people around you won't even notice you're doing it. Spending just 10 to 15 minutes performing this movement after a meal can produce a meaningful and measurable effect on your blood sugar. The soleus muscle is incredibly efficient, but it's not the only muscle that helps. The more muscles you activate after eating, your legs, core, back, and arms, the more glucose your body pulls from the bloodstream, and the faster that process happens. Fortunately, there are several easy ways to accomplish this, and none of them require changing your daily routine. The first option is something almost everyone can do. Take a short walk after eating. In one study, researchers served the same meal to two groups of participants. One group remained seated afterward, while the other took a relaxed 10-minute walk. The difference was remarkable. The walking group's blood sugar peak was about half that of the group who stayed sitting. Notice what wasn't required. No hour-long workout, no treadmill, no high-intensity intervals. Just 10 minutes of comfortable walking. Where you walk doesn't matter very much. Take a stroll outside. Walk around your living room while checking your phone. Or climb a few flights of stairs in your building. The important part is simply replacing sitting with movement. Another highly effective option is the squat. Squats work quickly because they activate the largest muscles in your body, your quadriceps and glutes. Larger muscles consume more glucose, allowing your body to clear sugar from the bloodstream even faster. The technique is simple. Stand with your feet roughly shoulder width apart and point your toes slightly outward. Lower yourself only as far as feels comfortable. There's no need to squat all the way down. Keep your chest lifted and your back straight, while allowing your knees to follow the same direction as your toes instead of collapsing inward. Then press back up to the starting position. Aim for 10 slow, controlled repetitions. A simple way to remember is to connect them to an existing habit. Turn on the kettle after dinner, and while your tea or coffee is heating, complete your set of squats. By the time the water is ready, you've already given your muscles an opportunity to use some of the glucose from your meal. The final strategy is probably the most overlooked of all: housework. Most people already spend time cleaning, but they often do it before eating or much later, after blood sugar has already peaked. The secret is timing. Do those chores immediately after your meal. About 15 minutes of cleaning the kitchen after dinner, provides glucose control benefits that are surprisingly similar to taking a short walk. Wash the dishes by hand, wipe the countertops, sweep the floor, put everything back where it belongs. Each of those simple tasks keeps your body moving, activates your muscles, and gives excess glucose somewhere productive to go instead of allowing it to remain in your bloodstream. The best part is that these aren't extra chores. You are probably going to do them anyway. That's exactly why I like these 4 strategies so much. They don't require you to redesign your schedule. You don't have to wake up earlier. You don't need an expensive gym membership that could cost anywhere from a few dozen to several $100s each month. You don't need workout clothes. You don't need a personal trainer. All you're really doing is avoiding complete inactivity for 10 to 15 minutes after eating. And if you truly want to stay seated, simply perform those heel raises while sitting. That's enough to get started. There's one more important point that's worth mentioning. The speed at which insulin resistance develops and the speed at which insulin sensitivity can improve is influenced by age. After the age of 40, muscle mass naturally begins to decline unless you actively maintain it. Doctors refer to this gradual loss as sarcopenia. Less muscle means your body has fewer places to dispose of glucose. That places greater demand on the pancreas. And the more pressure placed on the pancreas, the more pronounced that blood sugar roller coaster becomes. Leave a quick comment with your age below. It genuinely helps me understand who's watching and allows future videos to focus on the health concerns that matter most to this community. So let's bring everything together. If you begin moving shortly after meals, you'll likely notice changes within just a few days. That heavy afternoon brain fog starts to lift, your concentration improves, energy becomes more consistent instead of crashing an hour after lunch. Even those powerful cravings for sweets gradually become less intense. But the long-term benefits are even more valuable. Every time your muscles remove glucose directly from the bloodstream, your pancreas gets a chance to rest. One break may seem small, but those breaks accumulate over months and years. That can make the difference between maintaining good metabolic health well into your 60s and 70s, or gradually progressing toward insulin resistance, prediabetes, and eventually type 2 diabetes. Here's what I'd encourage you to do. Pay attention to what happens during the first 15 to 20 minutes after every meal. Try the seated heel raises today and notice how you feel afterward. At your next doctor's appointment, ask about your fasting blood glucose results. If appropriate, discuss checking your hemoglobin A1C as well. That test provides an average of your blood sugar levels over roughly the previous 3 months and offers a much broader picture of your metabolic health. If you're already taking medications such as metformin or supplements like berberine or magnesium glycinate for blood sugar support, those decisions should always be discussed with your healthcare provider, not based solely on information from a YouTube video. Use this video as a starting point, but make any health decisions with someone who understands your complete medical history. If you found today's information useful, I'd really appreciate your support. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. Our goal is to reach 300,000 subscribers, and every single subscription helps us get one step closer. For a simple checklist and practical summary of everything we've covered today, scan the QR code on your screen and join my Telegram channel, where I regularly post follow-up tips and easy-to-use health guides.